Part 79. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 781. The old leader listened to Lu Shui's words and smiled slightly. When the time comes, no matter whether things are done or not, you have to come back to attend the meeting. Such an important meeting cannot be without you. Let Xiao Kui stay and deal with the remaining things. Lu Shui immediately understood that he was letting himself take the lead. Okay, we can rest assured that Xiao Kui will do things. If the old leader is relieved, they can rest assured that Kui Xiaoyuan is not a person with evil intentions anyway. After saying this, Lu Shui said, according to what you said, hey, Xiao Kui and I can't just go there. There are so many things coming together, overt and covert inspections, so we need to bring more people. The person who was in charge of this work before was not them, so they would have to be redeployed. Bring all the people under Xiao Kui who are responsible for this. There are female comrades. When it is inconvenient for male comrades to come forward, they will come forward. After all, it involves the families of senior generals. Before a conclusion is reached, we must respect it. The old leader said, this important matter will be left to you. I won't worry about letting others go. He didn't know what he thought of, and his brows furrowed slightly. Lu Shui didn't notice this, but Kui Xiaoyuan noticed it and said with a smile, we will definitely not let down the old leader's trust. The old leader waved his hand and told them to go back and prepare. Don't ask anyone who is interested to tip over there. Stepping out of the old leader's house, Lu Shui said to Kui Xiaoyuan, okay, let's hurry up. It would be best if we can come back before the meeting. If not, I'll thank you for the hard work, Xiao Kui. It is an honor to eliminate corrupt elements in the country, not hard work, Kui Xiaoyuan said with a smile. Many senior generals of the border defense forces have inextricably linked relationships with the country's top leaders. Can we do it as soon as possible? Lu Shui looked at him for half a minute. Okay, you're right. Do you want to send 2 people to the hometowns of those senior generals to conduct overt and covert inspections before departure? Didn't the report letter say that there are family members relying on their husbands? He is a high-ranking official in the army and is treated favorably in his hometown. He often buys good things pretending to be processed goods. That's necessary, Kui Xiaoyuan said. The person Lu Shui was talking about was none other than Chen Ju. You can tell from the handwriting of this report letter that it was written by a lesbian. The content is described in great detail. The Luzhang family's wool blankets, towels, enamel jars, creams, etc. are all found in Qi Gang's home. It is also said that Chen Ju has 5 watches and 3 watches. 2 blocks were imported and 2 blocks were made domestically. In my hometown, I had 3 major items, a sewing machine, a radio, and a bicycle. I also brought a large box of new cloth and new shoes to the army. I changed my clothes every day. They said they were purchased processed goods, but in fact the fabrics were not dyed. Uniform, with imperfections such as edge wear. The letter also reported a situation, that is, when Chen Ju arrived in the army, she found that the treatment in the army was better than outside. The products in the military service club were dazzling, many of which were high-priced products that could not be seen in department stores in her hometown. From time to time, I cried in front of some low-level officers and soldiers, saying that my son was young and needed to supplement his nutrition. Many soldiers heard what she meant and had to give up their supply quota to Chen Ju. Chen Ju was very dissatisfied. In the end, many soldiers bought things like malted milk luncheon meat and sent them to him. The family pointed out in unison. The letter directly mentioned one of Chen Ju's crimes, asking for bribes. In fact, the main reason was to report Qi Gang and Chen Ju, right? According to what the letter said, the things Lu Jiang's family owned were a fraction of what Qi Gang's family had. How much did 3 imported watches cost? If it's Rolex or Omega, you can't even buy it for $1,000. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 782. When the report letter arrived in the capital and Lu Shui, Kui Xiaoyuan, and others boarded the plane, Feng Qingxiu's more than 100 days of leave happened to come to an end. She immediately returned to the army to cancel her leave and assume her responsibilities as a medical soldier, but she had to take Zibao with her. And Fuebao. There is no way, Zibao is not old enough to go to school, and Fuebao is only more than 3 months old and cannot do without his mother's care. The army has schools, but there is no nursery school yet. The reason is that there are not many infants and young children, and most of the family members accompanying the army are idle at home. Of course, Feng Qingxiu was worried about having a nursery. How could others take care of their children as carefully as she did? She has never forgotten the treatment Wang Zonghua received. The biggest good news about resuming work is that going to the capital was considered a business trip, and the round-trip expenses can be reimbursed. After Du Xiaotao's reminder, Feng Qingxiu happily reimbursed the cost of an air ticket and a train ticket, which was equivalent to less than half a year's salary. The army arranges medical soldiers to examine, treat diseases and promote health work among the people in Tibetan areas. More than half of the medical soldiers in the army have left the army to visit local residents and may not come back for 10 days and a half, but Feng Qingxiu is not among them. She had 2 children to take care of, and the army arranged for her, Wang Sanbao and others to stay at the army hospital to take charge of soldiers and family members who were injured during training. Xiao Shitu came in with an ouch, and from afar, he heard Huang Xiaozi scolding, "It's not a loss. Who told you that you couldn't study well, and you had to force a bunch of boys to skip class? You deserve it if you break your bones." As soon as the words fell, Feng Qingxiu saw mother and son coming in. Xiao Shitu was covered in mud, with his sleeves rolled up, the skin on the tip of his elbow was broken, and a piece of skin was scratched on his forehead, which was all bloodshot. Tears were rolling in his eyes, and Huang Xiaozi, who was angry, was grabbing his ears. "Aunt Chue, please help me, my mother is about to twist my ears off," Xiao Shitu shouted. Feng Qingxiu went over and pulled Huang Xiaozi's hand away. "Sister-in-law, you see Xiao Shitu is injured, why are you grabbing his ears? This kid skips class. I pay him 5 yuan in tuition a year, but he is so good that he doesn't take classes well." Huang Xiaozi let go of her hand angrily. "Let's not talk about skipping class." He quietly sneaked into the racecourse and stole the horse of the cavalry company. Didn't he fall off his horse? Even though it was spring, it was still frozen here, and he was scratching his head at that time. As a parent, his father and I had nothing to complain about. But if he brings someone else with him, how can we compensate him if he gets scratched? The more Huang Xiaozi talked, the angrier she became. She stretched out her hand to twist Xiao Shitu's ears again, but Xiao Shitu hurriedly hid behind Feng Qingxiu. Seeing Xiao Shitu's embarrassed appearance, Zibao giggled happily with his belly puffed out, quite gloating about his misfortune. "Brother, your ears, it means your ears have been twisted." "Zibao, you are so bad, you actually laughed at me." Xiao Shitu made a face at him, and then made an ouch under Feng Qingxiu's treatment. "Aunt Chue, please be gentle, it hurts me to death." Feng Qingxiu used the iodine she prepared to disinfect him. "The pain will make you remember. I'll make your mother angry." Under Huang Xiaozi's glare, the little stone immediately became silent. After taking care of the wound, Feng Qingxiu checked his whole body again and said to Huang Xiaozi, "The boy's skin is strong and his bones have not been broken. Don't let his wound touch water in the past 2 days. I will put some medicine on him when he comes to my house in the evening." He recovered quickly. "Thank you, Xiaoxiu, for causing you trouble." Huang Xiaozi was quite embarrassed. She didn't find another hygienist to treat Xiao Shitu's wound because she had the best relationship with Feng Qingxiu, and Feng Qingxiu was gentle and attentive. "Sister-in-law, Don't say that. It's my duty to treat injuries, so it's not a bother. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 783. Soldiers who participate in basic training are basically not injured, so Feng Qingxiu's work is actually very leisurely, but she is not idle. She has been humbly learning from her seniors, especially Wang Sanbao, who has benefited a lot every time. Wang Sanbao is also very satisfied with Feng Qingxiu's attitude. She likes children who are studious and motivated. There is so much knowledge in the world and there is no end to learning. No one can brazenly say that he knows everything. On the contrary, Wang Sanbao doesn't like those medical soldiers who rely on their own skills and rest on their laurels instead of continuing to learn to increase their abilities. However, there are quite a lot of such medical soldiers, which is very sad. One was teaching and the other was studying. When they were working hard, Zheng Suifeng sent a guard to ask Feng Qingxiu to go home. What's the matter? Feng Qingxiu was surprised. She was working, why did you tell her to go home? Isn't that a violation of discipline? The visitor smiled and said, several leaders came from the capital to inspect. First of all, they wanted to see the accommodation conditions for the family members accompanying the army. Political Commissar Zhang thought of you, Comrade Qingxiu. But don't worry, yours is just the first one, not the only one. Feng Qingxiu murmured in her heart, inspection. Check what? Has it finally reached here? She had already put away the things at home that needed to be packed away. She knew clearly that there was a storm outside, so how could she not deal with it when she came back and leave a problem for her family? So there is nothing in the house that others are afraid of discovering. As soon as the mother and son arrived at the gate of the family compound, they saw several senior military generals walking over accompanied by Lu Shui and Kui Xiaoyuan. Lu Shui, she had seen him before, so she knew him. Although she has never met Kui Xiaoyuan in person, she looked through some information in private when she rescued Kui Xiaoyuan's father and saw some photos of him from his youth to his old age. Behind the two men, there were several middle-aged men and women who looked like cotters. Grandpa, Zibao shouted happily when he saw Lu Shui, and then his little head looked behind him. A look of disappointment appeared on his face, and he spread his two chubby hands. There is no grandpa. Lu Shui picked him up with a smile, only me and your uncle Kui are here together today, there is no other grandpa. Grandpa, Zibao's attitude was very enthusiastic. Feng Qingxiu greeted the leaders one by one, and Zheng Suifeng smiled and said, Comrade Qingxiu, please take us to your home. The leaders above are very concerned about the living conditions of the family members accompanying the army, so they took the opportunity to inspect. He himself felt that this rhetoric was extremely hypocritical, but he had no choice but to say what needed to be said. Zheng Suifeng didn't even think about the fact that the other party made such a request when he first arrived in the army. It must be related to the movement in the past 2 years. However, he often visited the Lu family and knew the situation of the Lu family, so he was not afraid of being investigated. Lu Shui said, yes, let us see your living conditions. This was what he and Kui Xiaoyuan had agreed upon. After arriving at the destination, he went to each house that had been reported at lightning speed to find out. Everything he saw in this situation was real, and there was nothing wrong with it. Prepare for authenticity. Before they set off, the old leader kept everyone who had read the report in the compound and did not give them a chance to report the report. Many people in the family compound were taking their children to play outside. Seeing this situation, they looked at each other. Chenju was secretly happy. She came so quickly. She would definitely be able to fight Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu. By then, they would be the lost dogs that everyone wanted to beat, and no one would be able to put pressure on herself and her son anymore. Qi Gang frowned tightly and glanced at his gloating wife, knowing that she did not listen to him and stop Cao Hongju. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 784. Stepping into the Lu family courtyard first, and then into the house, Lu Shui, Kui Xiaoyuan, and others had only one feeling, that is, it was clean and tidy. So clean. So neat. Even the grain and dried vegetables stacked in the west corner are arranged neatly and clearly visible. There is a colorful portrait of the old leader on the front wall, and the old leader's calligraphy hanging on it. A photo of Zibao, the old leader and others is also nearby, all of which are spotless. On the Kong are 3 folded quilts and a terry quilt, 2 large pillows, and 2 small pillows. A pair of large pillows are covered with red pillow towels, and there are quilts and sheets underneath. There is no so-called wool blanket. The quilt, on the other hand, all the bedding, sheets, pillowcases, and towels had signs of wear and tear, and some were even patched. You could tell they were old items at first glance. An old Kong table stood against the wall, with an old bamboo basket filled with needlework and toys placed on the table. There were towels, clothes, and diapers hanging on the clothesline. None of them were new, and every one of Lu Jiang's clothes was patched. Kui Xiaoyuan counted the towels specifically mentioned in the report letter. There were 4 towels in total, 3 of them were old and badly worn, and only one was new and as white as snow. There were 2 large boxes and a cabinet next to them. Their identity was unclear at the moment, and there was a row of shoes next to them. There are more than a dozen pairs of liberation shoes, leather shoes, military boots, cloth shoes for adults and children, single shoes, and cotton shoes. Each pair is clean and neatly arranged, and 80% of them are old. Although Badaling and Lantang's leather shoes were polished, everyone could tell at a glance that they were old leather shoes that had been worn for at least 2 or 3 years. There were 2 enamel basins in the room. One of them had lost its porcelain. It was draped with an old towel. It was located next to the shoes. It was probably a footbath. Another enamel basin was placed on top of the box. In the basin were 2 or 3 bottles of Yashuang cream, clam oil, and an enamel jar with 2 toothbrushes and a toothpaste inserted upside down. It was not new either. Taking advantage of Feng Qingxiu's opportunity to unlock the cabinet door with a key and pour water into the enamel jar for the guests, a female comrade named Ding Aiheng stepped forward to help. She took a few glances into the cabinet and had a panoramic view of the situation inside. Below the cabinet is a small 2-door cabinet with 3 floors separated by wooden boards. The upper floor contains lunch boxes, bowls, chopsticks, cups, plates, spoons, and cans and bottles containing oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar. The middle floor contains a row of enamelware. None of the jars, including the 3 in Feng Qingxiu's hand, were new. One of them seemed to have been bumped, and the porcelain fell off, revealing dark marks. The bottom floor contains milk bottles and the high-priced goods mentioned in the report letter, such as malted milk, milk powder, candy, canned food, luncheon meat, etc. The quantity is not too much, and Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu can afford it with their wages. Feng Qingxiu handed the enamel jar to Ding Aiheng, then opened the small cabinet below and took out the iron hot water bottle. My boy is naughty and doesn't dare to put the hot water bottle outside for fear of knocking it over and burning himself, so he always has to lock it in the cabinet, Feng Qingxiu explained with a smile while pouring water, and deliberately let the other party see. In addition to 2 hot water bottles, there were only 2 military kettles that were not old and new in the small cabinet. There were many guests at home and the enamel jars were not enough, so Feng Qingxiu took out all the bowls and used them as tea bowls. Kui Xiaoyuan took a bowl of brewed butter tea and asked, "How will your life be after you join the army?" "It's pretty good," Feng Qingxiu said with a smile. "You don't have to worry about food, clothing, and housing. Usually the army canteen is full, and there are food subsidies from home. My father and I have enough wages to support the whole family. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 785. Kui Xiaoyuan glanced at the Kong and continued, "It seems that you are living a good life." Feng Qingxiu noticed his look and immediately said, "Yes, without the wise leadership of the old leader, how could we have such a good life today? Our family has always had plenty of food and clothing, and we can laugh out loud in our dreams. The things made by our workers, it's just good and the quality is excellent. The leather shoes I bought as a gift when I got married are 4 or 5 years old now. Except for the inner sheets of the quilt, they are not damaged." Zheng Suifeng was so smart. He followed up and said, "The towel quilt on the Kong was given by me when they got married. Look, there is almost no wear and tear, which shows that the workers of our country are serious and do not cut corners." "Did the towel quilt come from political commissar Zhang?" Kui Xiaoyuan turned to look at Zheng Suifeng. "I thought you should at least give me a wool blanket." "Wool blanket?" Zheng Suifeng laughed out loud. "People in Tibetan areas have these, they are not expensive, and they also have sheepskin robes, but weren't we here when they got married?" Kui Xiaoyuan said in surprise, "It's easy to buy wool products and sheepskin products here." Zheng Suifeng nodded, "Not to mention buying it, we also have some in our army. We raise sheep ourselves. We hold a bonfire party during the holidays and kill cows and sheep. Aren't the wool, sheepskin, and cowhide readily available? Many soldiers have been there for a long time. After crawling around in the snow and ice, I relied on sheepskin to keep me warm. Of course, this is a collective thing, not an individual one." When Kui Xiaoyuan and Zheng Suifeng were talking, Ding Aiheng said to Feng Qingxiu embarrassedly, "We came in a hurry and didn't have time to prepare a change of clothes. Can I ask you to borrow 2 pieces of clothes to wear? I will return them to you before leaving." "Of course. It's your choice. In my hometown, borrowing clothes is a common thing." Feng Qingxiu and Bingxiu were smart and would not refuse Ding Aiheng's temptation. Taking off the enamel basin on the box, Feng Qingxiu opened a box and asked Ding Aiheng to choose her own clothes. "The climate here is different from that in the capital. Although spring has just begun, everyone is already used to wearing a coat in the morning and wearing a gauze in the afternoon. That's it. You pick out 2 thin clothes first, and I'll open the box later, which will contain thick clothes." Ding Aiheng didn't want to borrow clothes, but took the opportunity to choose clothes to observe the situation in the box. She looked through it with her hand. There were no valuables in it, not a single piece of new clothes. The most expensive one was probably cashmere clothes. Lu Jiang's cashmere clothes and pants had patches at the knees and elbows, but Feng Qingxiu and the child didn't have any patches, so they weren't new at first glance. "Hey, there's a cashmere jacket inside," Ding Aiheng said, pretending to be surprised. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "In addition to the children's clothes, the box is full of belongings bought when we got married. I still wear the military coat and leather boots that Mr. Zhao's sister-in-law Xiuying gave me. In the past few years, except for the military uniforms issued by the army according to seasons, Feng Qingxiu has never made new clothes for herself. Their family is just a little extravagant in terms of food, but there is no difference between them in terms of clothing and housing. The imported watches they bought originally were put into her room after they came to the army, because she saw from the information it is said that wearing foreign watches during special periods is considered capitalism or something. Anyway, there are only disadvantages and no advantages." Ding Aiheng borrowed an old military cotton-padded jacket and already knew in her mind that the Lu family's life was much better than that of ordinary people, but at this salary level, it could not be called extravagance and waste. As for corruption and bribery, they had to continue to investigate openly and secretly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 786. Ding Aiheng retired and stepped aside. The conversation between Kui Xiaoyuan and Zheng Suifeng came to an end, and he suddenly asked Feng Qingxiu, "When we first joined the army, we seemed to have heard a lot of gossip. Did you accept things from the soldiers? High-priced food and so on?" Hearing these words, several senior generals of the Border Defense Forces frowned, including Zheng Suifeng. Qi Gang's heart suddenly rose. Did he get to the point? But this situation is not considered corruption and bribery at all. That's what you said. Wait, I'll show you something, and you'll understand. There were many people in the family compound, and it was impossible to refuse everyone's kindness. Feng Qingxiu had already prepared, and picked up the box from the box. He took out a booklet and handed it over. When my children and I first came to the army, everyone was very enthusiastic and bought a lot of things for our children, such as malted milk, high-grade toffee, dried yak, etc. We couldn't refuse, and they didn't charge us, so I and Lu Zhang wrote it down one by one. We can't take advantage of others, right? So, if we can't avoid it, we will definitely return the gift. Some will give him a pair of shoes, and some will give him back a pair of knee pads with records on them, and some of them were not returned. I will pay them back slowly in the future. Speaking of this, Feng Qingxiu said with a smile, "This is a favor. Although we have already returned the favor, we have accepted their kindness. Whatever happens to them in the future, we will be obliged to do so. We cannot feel that we do not owe the favor just because we have returned the favor." Kui Xiaoyuan looked through it carefully, and sure enough, as Feng Qingxiu said, he remembered every word clearly, including the date. After turning 2 pages, Kui Xiaoyuan saw that a comrade named Gao Yuzhu sent 2 cans. Behind it, there were words written by Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu sending 10 yuan to the comrade's parents and family. Most of the comrades have records of returning gifts. Among those who did not return gifts were Zhang Xiaoyu and her family. They must have given too many high-priced goods. The Lu family would not be able to pay them back for a while. Zibao ate chicken cakes at Ye Zhenjun's house. Everything was recorded on it, including the things and nutritional supplements received during the birth of the child in the capital. The last payment was 300 yuan from the old leader. Moreover, Kui Xiaoyuan also saw that his son Kui Zishong gave Zibao a pen, and his father Kui Hongbin bought eggs, sausages and other food for Zibao on the train. Yes, this is the evidence to clear Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu of corruption and bribery. Comrade Qingxiu, keep it first and keep it well. If we need it, you have to lend us this booklet. Kui Xiaoyuan, who didn't need to be polite at all, his voice became much lighter. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "Don't worry, this contains the favors we have accepted. How can we not keep these heavy favors well?" Kui Xiaoyuan handed it to Lu Shui to read once. After Lu Shui flipped through a few pages, he handed it to Ding Aiheng and other staff who were following him. He passed it around one by one and secretly remembered some of the names on it before returning it to Feng Qingxiu. Taking things from others, giving money, or returning gifts of considerable value is not corruption or bribery. Feng Qingxiu has proved her and Lu Jiang's innocence, but they will find the person involved based on the names recorded above to ask for clarification. If both parties agree, they can clear Lu Jiang and Feng Qingxiu of the charges in the report letter. Kui Xiaoyuan, Lu Shui, and others did not sit for a long time and came out quickly. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 787. Comrade Commander Qi, Comrade Commander Chen and Comrade Ye are not here. Comrade Deputy Commander and Comrade Chief of Staff of the military region have no family members accompanying the army. They live in the dormitory like Comrade Commander Chen. Let's go to your house to sit there. Okay, let's go to Commander Ye's home later, and then we'll also go to the homes of other family members, Lu Shui said to Qi Gang. Qi Gang was stunned when he heard this. My home. Weren't they here to investigate Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu for corruption, bribery, and extravagance because of the report letter? Does sitting around like this in their house count as an investigation? Why go to your own home? Kui Xiaoyuan smiled slightly. We came down to inspect, mainly to see the living conditions of the border defense troops. Never mentioned the report letter. Qi Gang couldn't refuse, so he had to take them to his home. Chenju couldn't wait to see the Lu family's jokes, but she couldn't express her thoughts, so she gathered with a group of military family members in the family compound, looking at the Lu family, waiting for things to break out. At this moment, she found that people from the capital left the Lu family and turned directly to her own home, and she couldn't help but frowned. The leaders from the capital have come to your home. Why don't you go home and greet the guests? Lu Zayadai pushed Chenju. Chenju came back to her senses and hurriedly took her son home. She didn't notice a very faint smile on Cao Hengji's lips, which was quite similar to the excitement she felt when she heard that someone from the capital went directly to the Lu family. As a socialist fighter, she would not turn a blind eye to corruption, extravagance, and waste in the army. Whatever she knows, she will report it to the higher authorities, expose their crimes, and let them get the punishment they deserve. When Chenju returned home, Qi Gang was using an enamel jar and bowl to pour water for the guests. As a result, there was not enough water at home, and he looked very embarrassed. Lu Shui pressed his stomach and said with a smile, "We drank a lot of butter tea at Comrade Qingxiu's house and were feeling exhausted, so we came to your place to sit and take a look. There is no need to pour us water. Compared with the Lu family, this place is simply a doghouse." The quilt on the Kong must have been folded and then opened by the children. There was a pile of unwashed clothes at the end of the Kong. A dozen wooden guns, rattles, cloth tigers, slingshots and other toys were scattered everywhere. On the stove there were unwashed dishes and chopsticks with solidified milk powder on the bottom of the bowl. Under the edge of the Kong, there were 10 or 20 pairs of shoes, mostly women's leather shoes, both old and new, all of them Lantang leather shoes. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu only have 4 or 5 pairs of leather shoes together. There are 8 or 9 pairs of women's leather shoes here alone. Look at Chenju who came in right behind them. She was dressed very fashionably, with hairspray on her head. She was wearing a turtleneck red woolen coat, a dark blue woolen coat, and a pair of purple corduroy trousers underneath. It was 90% new and had not been wet for a few times. On its feet were shiny blue tang leather shoes and on its left hand was a Rolex watch. Another lesbian, Hu Zahong, followed suit and asked Chenju to borrow some clothes. Chenju was not as smart as Feng Qingxiu, but she reacted immediately after opening the box. Just as she was about to close the box, she was immediately supported by Hu Zahong, holding the lid of the box with one hand and buying the bottom with the other. In fact, she knew that the content about Qi Gang's family in the report letter was true without buying the bottom. Except for the clothes that were worn out by children, most of them were new clothes. There were piles of new fabrics at the bottom. Several watch boxes were also fished out, including an Omega, a Roman, and a Plum Blossom. An Yingnag, a Shanghai brand and a Tianjin brand, plus the Rolex in Chenju's hand, she has a total of 7 watches. I overestimated my hand speed and continued typing after dinner. I will definitely vent my anger today. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 788. It is great for ordinary people to own a domestic watch. Among them, Shanghai brand watches are the most famous and cost 70 or 80 yuan apiece. Only sailors and soldiers in the army will buy them if conditions permit because of their high wages and low consumption. Buy an imported watch, but no one owns 7 watches like Chenju. 7 watches. 5 imported watches and 2 domestic watches. The former costs money without tickets, while the latter requires money and tickets. Qi Gang was shocked when he saw several watches that Hu Zihong fished out. "Comrade Chenju, where did you get so many watches?" He had never opened Chenju's box, and he didn't know that Chenju had 6 watches besides the Rolex he bought for her when they got married, almost all of them brand new. "I bought it myself, using your salary," Chenju replied loudly. The voice was loud, but everyone present could tell that she lacked confidence. It's not surprising to use Qi Gang's salary to buy a watch. When Qi Gang married Chenju, he had a monthly salary of more than 200 yuan, which is a full teacher-level salary of 241 yuan, and another 2%. The 15-year subsidy is now 30%, which adds up to more than 300 yuan. 3 to 4,000 yuan a year is indeed enough for Chenju to buy a few imported watches. However, the senior generals present knew one thing very well. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, Qi Gang had to send living expenses to his ex-wife every month. At first, Qi Gang only sent 30 yuan to his first wife, but didn't Chenju replace his revolutionary partner Li He 6 or 7 years ago? Therefore, Qi Gang had to pay the living expenses of his 2 ex-wives at the same time for the past 6 or 7 years, 30 yuan each, plus 20 yuan for nutrition, and 100 yuan was deducted from his salary every month. There are more than 200 yuan left every month, 2 to 3,000 a year, which is enough for Chenju to buy a watch, but don't they have food, clothing, and housing? Looking at Chenju's clothes and shoes, and looking at Qi Xiang's appearance, the expense is not small. Of course, no matter how much he spends, Qi Gang's salary is still enough to buy these watches. After all, Chenju has been married for 6 or 7 years. Since it was bought with salary, what was Chenju guilty of? Seeing Qi Gang's shocked and angry look, Lu Shui said, "Comrade Qi Gang, we received a report saying that you two engaged in corruption, extortion of bribes, extravagance and waste, etc. You must cooperate with our investigation on this matter." Before Qi Gang could speak, Chenju blurted out, "Didn't they report Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu? How could they report us?" Qi Gang immediately closed his eyes, only the hands on both sides of his thighs were clenched into fists, trembling. Upon hearing Chenju's words, everyone in the room opened their eyes wide. "Comrade Chenju, why did you say that the report letter was to report Comrade Lu Zhang and Comrade Feng Qingxiu?" Ding Aiheng asked. From the time they arrived in the army to now, no one said that they had received the report letter, let alone the contents of the letter. Chenju was at a loss and couldn't answer. Seeing his mother being bullied, Qi Xiang screamed, grabbed the wooden gun on the Kong and pointed it at Ding Aiheng. "Bad guy, big bad guy, don't bully my mom. I'll beat you to death." He even wanted to poke Ding Aiheng with a gun, but Qi Gang, who opened his eyes, grabbed him back and apologized to Ding Aiheng repeatedly. Neither adults nor children can stand comparison. After seeing the cleanliness of the Lu family, seeing Feng Qingxiu's proper advance and retreat, and seeing Zibao's lively and polite manner, and then looking at the situation of the Qi family, and the behavior of Chenju and Qi Xiang, everyone from the capital prefers the former in their hearts. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 789. Kui Xiaoyuan said in a deep voice, "Comrade Commander Qi, what do you say?" "I have nothing to say and am willing to cooperate with any investigation conducted by the organization," Qi Gang replied. "Corruption, bribery, extravagance and waste are all behaviors that I despise. Please handle it according to the rules, Comrade Lu and Comrade Kui." Kui Xiaoyuan nodded and signaled Ding Aiheng and Hu Zihong to count the valuables in the room. So far, Hu Zihong has only opened one box, and there are also suitcases and cabinets that have not been inspected. "No. No," Chenju rushed over to stop Ding Aiheng and Hu Zihong, with her arms wide open, "You can't just ransack our home. We are not bad elements, so why should we search everywhere? If you don't search the Lu family, come here to ransack us. What are you doing at home?" Huzahong pushed her away and sneered, "If it weren't for the sake of Commander Chi, or if we didn't want to make the matter bigger, alarm other people, and make the border guards panic, we would have rushed in as soon as possible. I came in to rummage through my suitcases. Why do I need to secretly check your suitcases in the name of borrowing clothes?" It's not like she hasn't dealt with corrupt officials, her methods today are already very gentle. Qi Gang shouted, "Comrade Chenju, you are not allowed to move while you are standing. I also want to know how many things I have at home." Chenju's face was blue and white. Huzahong and Ding Aihong first took out the new clothes and new fabrics in the first box in order. Good guys, tweed, corduroy, woolen cloth, satin from Hangzhou Silk Factory, polyester cardigans, woolen sweaters, wool pants, and blended sweater pants. Labor cloth, cotton cloth, etc., are all good materials. Cotton cloth is the smallest in quantity. Without the slightest flaw, it is absolutely impossible to be treated cloth. Huzahong took inventory and Ding Aihong registered. Except for his underwear, he took out everything else, including a handkerchief pressed at the bottom of the box with thick food stamps wrapped inside. "Those are the food stamps I have saved over the years," Chenju said sharply. Huzahong couldn't help but sneer, "The country implements a planned economy, who doesn't get a certain amount of salary and food stamps? You don't have a salary, you only rely on the small supply of urban household registration. Why do you save so many food stamps? Aihong, open a suitcase, there must be something in there." As she expected, in addition to the clothes and fabrics, there was also a gold pocket watch and 2 pairs of new leather shoes, made by Lantang brand. This shows that Chenju loves Lantang leather shoes. The cabinets are full of high-priced products, including toffees, biscuits, chicken cakes, malted milk, lunch meat, yak jerky, milk powder, canned fruits, candied fruits, dried fruits, etc. The types and quantities are several times greater than those of the Lu family. Qi Gang's salary is completely affordable, but the supply is insufficient. Therefore, the origin of these things is very suspicious. Kui Xiaoyuan looked at Qi Gang. Does Commander Qi not even know what food is available at home? A flash of shame flashed across Qi Gang's face. These people know that some of the soldiers below are reluctant to spend money, so their supplies will naturally not be used. It is a pity that they have expired in vain. Because I have a child at home who is waiting to be fed, I will ask these soldiers ask for some tickets and use your own money to buy food for your children. It's not a big deal to pay for things with your own money and use tickets that others don't use. Many people do this and give tickets to each other. There is no financial transaction involved, but it's just a favor. We will investigate carefully because the report letter was conclusive. Kui Xiaoyuan and others remain skeptical of Qi Gang's words. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 790. Chenju knew that what she had done was beyond her control, but she was unwilling to do so. Why are they checking us? Do Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu confiscate other people's things? Even now, there are still many soldiers sending this and that to his house. They are all delicious. We, Lao Qi, pay for them ourselves. They just take it. Why are we unlucky and they can get away with it? I don't accept it. You have to accept it even if you don't want to accept it. Huzahong hates people who take advantage of their power to become corrupt. When people accept things, they also return gifts. Nothing is free. Remember it clearly, including when you get married. I received congratulatory gifts from my comrades and doctors and nurses at the military hospital, and I saw the records. The things they eat and wear are within a certain amount and have not been replaced in several years. It is not like your family, which has so many shoes. Cloth, where did all these new clothes come from? Don't tell me what kind of treated products you bought. I've seen them. The shoes are all good, and the fabrics are also good. You don't have any treated products at all. The report letter made it very clear that Chenju was using her power to ask for bribes, which was different from others giving food to Zibao. When life was difficult, it was normal for neighbors to give food to their children. Hu Zihong also saved her life. Many people were starving to death. Kui Xiaoyuan frowned. Okay, Xiao Hu, just say a few words. This matter hasn't been investigated carefully yet, so we can't make a conclusion so quickly. Register the things first and receive, Comrade Deputy Commander, Comrade Chief of Staff, you have to pack up 2 rooms for us and store these confiscated materials separately. Comrade Commander Chi and Comrade Chenju are temporarily separated until we return from a trip to Comrade Shan Qingming's place, and we have no intention of doing so. I went to each family member's home to take a look and act based on the report letter first. What else don't all the senior generals present understand? The report letter not only reported Lu Zhang, Feng Qingxiu, Qi Gang, and Chenju, but also reported the director of the logistics department Shan Qingming. I don't know if there are others. Chenju seemed to know who wrote the report letter, but she didn't expect to report them too. Zheng Suifeng and others looked at Chenju, whose face was ashen. Chenju also reacted, you mean, we were reported in the report letter? Really? Really? As she spoke, her chest heaved with anger. Yes. If someone exposes you for corruption, bribery, extravagance, and waste, we have to investigate. The only thing that can be confirmed now is that Comrade Lu Zhang and Comrade Feng Qingxiu are innocent. Although they used a few extra towels and several enamel jars, they are not as extravagant and wasteful, but you are proven guilty. Before Hu Zihong could finish speaking, Chenju yelled. She didn't know where she got the strength from, pushed aside several senior generals standing by the door, and rushed out like an arrow. When everyone in the room saw this, they immediately separated a few people to follow. Go up. After Lu Shui and Ding Aiheng went out, they were dumbfounded. I saw Chenju grabbing a young woman in her 30s by her hair, riding on her, and beating her up and down. Cao Hengju, if I have any grudge against you, report my boss Ji and me. When did I not treat you with delicious food when you came to my house? Tell me. Why did you report Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu? Chapter 11, please vote, I will continue coding and try to update it in one go tomorrow morning.